When you've got questions, he always has an answer. It's Sean Hannity, this afternoon at 2, right before Joe Walsh at 5 on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And on Sunday, on Chris Walsh's program, Larry Kudlow, Trump's chief economic advisor, was on to talk about China and trade and tariffs. And he pushed back against this characterization by Wallace that, this 90-day truce that begins, the clock starts to tick on Jan 1. What does it really mean? There's sort of these nebulous promises from China about reducing tariff and trade barriers, but how serious are they? Kudlow had specific pushback saying this.
Here was the Chinese Commerce Department announcement, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. China will immediately implement specific issues that have been agreed upon by agriculture products, energy, and automobiles. Automobile tariffs announcements going to come from the State Council Tariff Commission. As I said earlier, it was also announced that a number of Chinese government agencies and the Supreme Court are looking at new laws to prevent intellectual property theft. These are very strong indications. President Trump himself, I remember he called me early Thursday morning to say, did you see that announcement? Did you see that announcement? And I did, and I think it's very positive. Really, we're making more progress now on more specific issues than ever before. Now, let me just add quickly, trust but verify. That's very important.
Right, and I've always held out hope that we would get to where Trump and Kudlow said we're trying to get to, in spite of Lighthizer and Navarro, because of Larry Kudlow. Because I believe Larry Kudlow, and I know that he is a dyed in the wool, I should say, supply sider. And yesterday, the big announcement, and it is a big announcement. It is a score one for Kudlow and Trump. Beijing saying it will reduce tariffs on U.S. autos to 15%, down from 40%. That's a big deal. And so, hey, if we get to not a zero, because that's utopian, but lower tariff, lower trade barrier, lower subsidies environment, and it's not the way that I would have approached it. I would do it unilaterally. Gets there faster. But if we get there, and particularly in spite of protectionists like Peter Navarro and Robert Lighthizer bouncing around, then all the better, and all the better for America. So I tip my cap to Larry Kudlow and President Trump. This is a substantive move. Now, again, we don't know when that tariff reduction is going to take place, so it's still the same position Larry Kudlow said, trust but verify. But it is a good indication that maybe some substantive reductions in those barriers and changes in the relationship between U.S. and China for economic reasons is happening.
Good. That's what you wanted. Because you were hard on Trump when the tariff war began because it seemed unnecessary, and hopefully it's going in the right direction.
No,
hopefully the markets will,
respond accordingly.
Yes, exactly.
Now, on the flip side, this farm bill that's making its way to the president's desk is, more of the same catastrophe, where you have poorer farmers and all taxpayers really subsidizing richer farmers. There's a good piece in National Review about the farm bill. It's just more lard for both parties to satisfy dependent constituencies. So that's an example of not lowering the subsidies in terms of that zero tariff, zero subsidy environment that we want to get to, that supposedly is the administration's goal. So that's less good. Okay. And then on the other front that we need to tackle today, because of the rare appearance by anyone of significance from Google before Congress, Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of Google, and this is an issue that's been taken up, of course, by President Trump. He's made overtures about looking at these huge social media companies, including Google and Facebook and Twitter. Sundar Pichai before Congress yesterday, and just a little bit of backdrop in terms of who we're talking about. Here's Sundar Pichai at the post-2016 election Google Confab Cryfest drum circle, where Sergey and Larry, you want to talk about Russian collusion, Sergey Brin, and Sundar and all of the executives assembled with 1,000 or so Google employees to commiserate about Trump's victory. Here's Sundar Pichai barely able to get through addressing the audience in the wake of Trump's victory.
There is a lot of fear within Google. I've gotten a lot of emails, to my note back. I would tell most Googlers there are people who are very afraid. And Sergey pointed out the, many groups, women, blacks, people who are afraid based on religion, people who are afraid because they are not sure of their status, the LGBTQ community, and I can go on. There is a lot of fear, and so I think it's important to reach out, be aware of that fear. I would be sensitive and try and talk and have conversations to the extent possible. We are so deeply committed to our values. Sergey mentioned at the start, nothing will change. I think we'll stand up always for the values we believe in. And especially, I think, in a society, you stand up for people who are minorities. And that's what defines a society, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, and then other people had their turn at the wheel to cry. But here's the thing, Pichai before Congress yesterday saying, look, number one, that employee who said Google worked to turn out the Latino vote was lying. No one person can manipulate search results. He suggested that, a bit disingenuously, but most members of Congress are so stupid they don't know what the point is. He made the point that there are two main ad accounts linked to Russia advertised on Google for about $4,700 total in 2016. It's very much like the Facebook campaign. In terms of actual spend, it's negligible. But there was so much that was done that was not formally paid for. And that's the real issue. It's not what these phony baloney companies actually spent. They didn't get very far on that. And then there's an exchange with Steve King and Sundar that I want to get to. But I want to give our friend Steve Moore the opportunity to gloat a little bit. CNN chief economist Steve Moore joins us now. Steve, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. We were just talking before you got here about score one for Kudlow and Trump, the reduction announced in Chinese tariffs on U.S. autos from 40 to 15%. Okay, that's progress.
Dan's happy.
Well, look, I think the president is on a bit of a roll. I thought he certainly got the best of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer yesterday, if you saw that little sprawl. Yeah. And, if we can get the one thing, in fact, our Laffer and I had the occasion to go in and see the president yesterday, so we chatted with him about where he stands on this trade stuff. He was very optimistic that we are going to get a deal done with China, that we're going to see something done on the auto tariffs. And by the way, if he can pull off the China trade deal, and I'd put the odds of that at maybe 70%, the economy is going to boom. The stock market's going to boom. There's no recession if he gets that done. In fact, the economy grows probably 3 and 4% again next year. So I feel a lot better about where we are today on the trade front. And you and I have sparred on this for a number of months. And I know you're an ardent free trader, which is what I love about you. But I think Trump may get this done, and you may have to rethink your philosophy on this, Dan, if he pulls it off.
Well,
I'm all for results.
Right,
I'm all for results.
What's next? I mean, are there any talks planned with Chinese officials, or what?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, right now it's a waiting period, and my bet is because look, the markets are so tightly strung right now, and everybody's waiting for the latest word. By the way, if I knew the answer to your question, I'd be a multimillionaire because everybody wants to know when is this going to get resolved? When is President Xi going to make that call to President Trump and say, okay, let's make a deal, let's get this done? I don't know the answer to it. I would bet that this goes on, that there's the chess match goes on for another couple of months because they've got 90 days, the Chinese, to come to an agreement. And if in 90 days they don't have an agreement, then China gets pounded with these 25% tariffs. China can't live with that. I believe, here's my bet, that when we get to close to the 90th day, maybe the 80th day, that's when President Xi folds like a cheap suit, and we get they get a call from Beijing saying, okay, we're ready to make a deal, and that would come in March or something like that. So there's going to be a lot of frazzled nerves between now and then, but I do think that's the way this plays out.
How much? How impactful? Since you were with the president with Laffer, did he mention anything about how impactful this arrest of the CFO of Huawei was, and whether that's a significant part of the conversation? I mean, it's really a Canadian legal matter more so than an American one, but we're being held responsible in some respects. Is more being made of that than there really is, or is that something China is demanding America intervene?
You mean the arrest of the executive?
Yeah, right.
Oh, we did not bring that up. I'm told from my sources. I didn't hear this from Larry Kudlow or the president himself, but I'm told he was caught by surprise on this. That this was actually the State Department and Justice Department that arranged this arrest of this woman.
Right.
She's the executive of the second or third largest company in China. But look, these countries are engaged in espionage. They're engaged in stealing our technologies. They are violating the rules with respect to the embargo against Iran, which is a national security threat. I mean, I think what that whole incident should open Americans' eyes about is that China is now an enemy. We're dealing with the Soviet Union here. This is a Cold War, and it's not as if this is a friendly rivalry. It no longer is. I mean, they are adversarial, and Trump believes that. By the way, Trump is, he likes the Chinese people. He likes, he understands the value of getting these products from China at low prices, but he also believes, I think quite correctly, that we are in a new era with China, and this abusive trade relationship, can't continue for another few years, and it's not going to. And by the way, if they don't have a deal in 90 days, Trump was he was very sincere about this when we talked to him yesterday. He said, I'm going to knock them with these tariffs. So it's not a hollow threat here. I think he's very serious about it.
All right. He is Steve Moore, chief economist for CNN, Wall Street Journal columnist. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay. Have a great day, guys. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.